I'm aware that you two, get along pretty well, and that neither of you really believe in fighting over differences and small issues. How do you both restrain from fighting over those things? And also, how would you suggest that people in our audience learn how to refrain from fighting over differences and other small things that really don't matter?
Mhm. They still kind of go back to some of what we said about respecting
Yeah,
and
right.
appre
Respecting the differences. Yeah,
appreciating the differences.
yeah.
And but we can't be combative, right? We can't be combative. We can't be out to get the other person. We
Mhm.
can't be vindictive, right? So if we're vindictive, that's not a godly attribute. And so a lot of what we talk about is still related to what scripture would say about how we're to conduct ourselves in our life. And I understand, believe me, I do.
Mhm.
So when I said be intentional, we choose to treat each other well. Even in the differences, you can't go out, you can't fight like a bad fight. Like you do whatever you want to do in this fight. I'm gonna cuss you out, I'm gonna throw everything, I'm gonna beat you and all. That's not a see if you're gonna have differences, you can do it in a respectful manner. And just at some point, sometimes we would just say, well, you see it differently than I do. And we have to respect that until God reveals to us or the other that maybe one of us have seen it wrong. And so
We
yeah,
do like to say too, one of the lines we do use is we agree to disagree.
right.
And so if there is a disagreement and I just can't, I mean, I'm trying my best to get him to see and he doesn't see, or vice versa, then we'll say, okay, well, you know what? I guess that's the female's way of looking at it. Or I guess that's the male's way of looking at it.
Or
And
your way or my way.
yeah,
And we just don't
and then
because see, we're not here to dominate the other person. You know, by the way, when you try to control other people, you ventured into witchcraft.
Oh,
Yeah, sorcery. We get the word it's from the word pharmacopoeia and pharmacia. We get the word pharmacy with drugs, and drugs alter behavior. So you're trying to force and dominate another person. People don't like to be dominated. Nobody wants to be controlled by another person. Love even is because it gives and forgives. There's a freedom in love, and you're free to choose. God extended that to us as well. We can come back to him. He showed his love towards us, and we can love him back. But we have the ability we're free to choose. And so I forgot now where we were.
I can repeat the question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so, uh, how do you both restrain from fighting over differences and small issues? And how would you suggest that people in our audience learn how to refrain from fighting over differences and other small things that don't really matter?
Yeah, you
not be
gotta,
selfish. Not be
yeah. And you
selfish.
gotta talk through things.
Yeah.
You have to talk through things and say, I was in sales, and this is one we don't want to make unreasonable assessments of other people.
Mhm.
And so we say some things could be small and all of this here. But say you're in a discussion, I always had our people, our counselees to say things like I would do in sales with the person who's buying or whatever. And I would ask Mr. Customer to tell me what are they really saying. And then I would even say, like, if I understand what you're saying, or if I understand you correctly, this is what you're saying. That gives the other person opportunity to say, no, that's not really what I was saying. This is what I'm saying, as opposed to dominate them. So little things come into the idea of forgiving and letting go, let God have his way, right? Give it up to God. Again, you can't make the person do it.
Mhm.
And if you do it, now you're controlling them and they under duress. and then now you dominate them, and then they may withdraw from you. See, if you don't give a people opportunity to share their angle and their side, this is really big, because everything we really talk about comes down to this communication thing.
Mhm.
Communication is the devil with people. And so communication is so vital. And the other person has to feel as though they can talk to you. Because if they start withdrawing, then it's something being chipped away over time. And so instead of growing together, you're starting to move apart, because everybody has a voice and they need to be able to express it. And we have to be willing to receive what they're saying, as opposed to just rejecting it as if they have no, it's almost like saying you ain't got no sense, you ain't got no common sense, you don't know nothing. Ain't nobody gonna deal with that forever. And if they do, you still never get the best out of them typically, of what they could give you and give back to you. So I think the little things, we don't make a mountain out of a molehill, as old folks used to say. You don't create something when it's really not much. And I think the big things in relationships has always come down to, one, infidelity. That creates a mess. And the biggest one is usually financial, because somebody could be in disagreement how things are managed in terms of money and finances, if there's money in the house. A lot of times it creates some pressure on the relationship when there's no money in the house. It creates pressure, and there's going to be this back and forth where you did this, and they're going to say, well, you did that, you bought this, you bought that, well, you bought this big old such and such, well, you drinking coffee at Starbucks every day, 2 times a day. And, so there's going to be this back and forth. So even in that, so those are the things that tend to be issues that people war over, is usually financial. And if it seems as though they're being disrespected in terms of the opposite sex with somebody else, or there's some actual infidelity, those are things that's going to be really hard on the relationship. And so sometimes the parties need to do counseling. They need to counsel. You need someone that's going to be a neutral party, that's not going to be on one side or the other, but they're just going to lay it out, what is best or what is wrong, what can be changed and adjusted, tweaked, and then the people have to be open to receive it.
And you have to be constantly being mindful of, of being pleasing to God, wanting to continue to grow. We're not by any means saying that, we're perfect. It's not that we don't disagree or any of that, but having the desire to continue to work on my relationship, even with the Lord, to be pleasing to Him. So all of that kind of plays a role. Grateful to Him that He has given us the mindset to want to be pleasing to Him. So wanting to put Him first, which is our true desire.
God is the compass for our life. The Holy Spirit is the compass for our life, and it lets us know if we're on point or not on point. And if I seek to please God first, my wife is an automatic beneficiary because of what His word teaches. You get what I'm saying? So I can't just go and say, well, you know what, I'm just going to do what I want to do. Well, if I'm looking to please God first, I can't do that. That's why I say it's the God first part. When we met, we both had relationships with God. So people wonder how we could have this peace and harmony and unity and all of that, is because we seek to please God first. He's not an afterthought. He's the first thought. And so you have to catch yourself,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Before you open your mouth, you just can't say stuff, and then you can't reel that stuff back in sometimes. You just said something. You don't want to do that, because now that person remembers, and women tend to remember stuff longer than we do. We didn't, it's like, oh, we gone. I'm out, I'm over. You done moved on. That ain't the way it works with the average woman. If you say something and wound them, that wound, they remember what you did, what you said. Now, that gets into other things though, but wounds have to be healed,
Ooh, okay.
right? You can't now keep on hitting them in the area where the wound exists. Anybody that's ever had a wound, you can't keep bumping it and so forth. You got to let it totally heal, because if you keep bumping it, it's going to keep pouring out. It's going to keep bleeding, right? And life is in the blood. So they bleeding out because they never get a chance to heal. So they never are able to sustain themselves and get strong enough to be able to handle, life and what's next. We got to help people heal. And that's going to be, you got to take caution. You got to take care. If I know somebody's hurting, do you think I'm going to go and try to hurt them some more? No, we got to be careful with them and give them some time. Because even healing from wounds take time. When you ever had the instantaneous healing to it? Somebody, if you fail and bust your knee, it's not like tomorrow is already healed. Not that God can't do that, but I'm just saying in the general sense, that's typically what's going to happen. It's got to go through a time process before healing actually takes place. And if we are impatient with people, we're not going to even give them the time. So I literally have to give her, or she would have to give me, or whatever. So some more little things. Sister Yolo, she would be with kids all day and education stuff. She would come home and stuff, and all she wanted to do is talk to them. She wanted to go talk because she had child conversation. She was looking for adult conversation. And so we had to say, wait a minute, give me a few minutes before you bombard me, because I just got off too, and I'm trying to de-stress, in a sense. And so we give each other time. We make allowances for people to be ready to converse and commune and all of that. It's not like, well, you never listen to me. No. Let's give me 20 minutes or 30 minutes so I can decompress. And now let's come together and talk. You can talk all you want to, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to talk through it. And that's why collaboration is so important. And I didn't say anything about collaboration. I feel funny doing all the talking, but collaboration is the win-win. Competitiveness is a win-lose. If you're competing with the other person in your relationship, that means one person's got to win and the other person got to lose. That's competition, right? But collaboration is working through the things together, which means you create a win-win situation. We both win. So when we're dealing with little things, big things, middle-sized things, let's create an atmosphere where we both win. I'm not fighting against her. Why do I need to fight against her if she is the other part of me?
So I have a
Otherwise,
question.
it's like that.
I have a question here. So I remember that Lady Yola mentioned about you gotta continue to grow in a relationship, right? And I see that you two have this dynamic of constantly being in tune with each other. From counseling several couples, do you notice a sense of complacency across the board, and if you do, how common is that?
This stuff is common that, we've had to counsel a lot of people, and we've had to help people not divorce each other. A lot of them. There's been a lot of that over the years. I mean, we've been doing it 20-some plus years, almost 25 years or maybe longer. But even more in these past 15 to 20 years, even more. But
Complacency.
yeah, you're dealing with the complacency. But a lot of that stuff still comes down to dealing with yourself
Mhm.
and respecting the other. You'll be amazed at how many people never really consider the other person's point of view.
Mm,
It is incredible. They just, and then when you're finally able to get it, then they realize and they said, oh, I see now. And then that's when you get that's the workaround to get them to turn the corner. But when they come in, a lot of time they like this, they just button heads. They're not trying to hear the other party. And you say complacency, I look at it as kind of like a total rejection of some time of hearing the other person. Some people just don't want to hear them because they got tired. They feel they got tired of them. But some people lack strong communication skills. And that's why counseling becomes so vital and important to bridge that gap, because sometimes it's difficult for the person to say some things, again, whether it won't be received, they say it'll be rejected, or it's just not even a light thing, but it's very harsh. And so somebody has to help smooth that out, those crooked places over, and then bring some understanding and help them see the error of their own ways. And you're never taking sides.
Mhm.
So each person learns themselves under pressure, what they're like under pressure, and they get to see what they're like themselves, and then that starts to help them navigate back to a healthy place.
this is I love this. This is a perfect segue to dive into Charles' relationship. Hi, Charles.
Yeah.
First off, I want to say thank you, Lady Yola and Pastor Sai, for all that wisdom. Like that's how I like to say meat. So I'm gonna need time to, digest. that's that's beautiful. You wouldn't get this from anywhere else. Thank you. So now, Charles,